doing? We don't get to go in the water. Why?
Because we are heading up to Slave Lake to see more about the oil industry and to meet more First Nations people and get some more interviews and see what's going on over there. Ceno Dave Loyie is our contact. We're going to meet with him and he's going to show us around and hopefully introduce us to some people and have some good conversation.
Great. Goodbye.
I had really mixed emotions about oil. I really liked the life that we were living before, and it changed so radically within like a year.
How did it change? In what ways?
Well, we went from being a horse culture to being basically an unskilled labor force, picking up the crumbs of the oil field work that came through. Some of the guys were pretty tough, strong boys, and they got tryouts on drilling rigs and stuff like that, and ended up making a pretty good living for themselves. A really high percentage of us have had cancer of some kind. A lot of us are dead.
How long ago did that switchover happen?
After they started drilling for oil, well, I got my first horse when I was 5. That was in 1961. And by 1962, 63, I guess it was the spring of 63, all the horses were dead. They drank out of oil sump and poisoned themselves. So there was quite a hunting and guiding business here. And it died overnight too. So people just put down their traps and guns and picked up a shovel and a pipe wrench and started shopping at the grocery store.
Sure. And if you said it felt like it was kind of overnight, just all of a sudden everything changed, you know?
Yeah, it was almost like turning a page.
Right, not a gradual thing. Just...
No. There was a few people who managed to save their horses, but there wasn't many. Like people used to travel from out here. My Auntie Annie Twin used to live here, and they used to travel into town by horse. Horse and wagoning.
Do you think that it's a viable solution to try and return to that in some way?
Well, of course it is. As part of this truth and reconciliation thing, we have to reestablish ourselves on the land.
Sure.
You know, because that's the first thing that happened in this colonial process is we were taken off our land.
Right.
Well, if you read Robinson Crusoe, they give us new names and the whole 9 yards, but we were put in our place. And like treaty Indians up until, what was it, 1961, couldn't go leave the reserve to go hunting unless you had a pass. And you had to tell exactly where you were going, what you were hunting for, who you were going with, and when you were going to be back.
How could you even know all that? You know?
You're going hunting just like, yeah, I called up a couple moose and they're going to be waiting for us at Bullshides.
Sure. That's not really how it works, right?
No, not at all. A lot of the treaty Indian people ended up getting fed by the half-breed people, or the Métis, who weren't governed by the on-reserve Indian laws. Like they could go and hunt, but they needed licenses, so they'd go and pick a treaty Indian up if they had killed a moose somewhere, and then, oh yeah, you got to come and claim this moose for us. But that's the way both families would get fed, the on-reserve family and the off-reserve family.
Interesting.
And the game warden, he knew what was going on, like, but it was no big deal. On a trip like this that we're taking from here to this industrial park, you'd see 3 moose before. You know, like, there used to be lots of animals. There's woodland caribou in here too. One of the last few herds we have. Okay, this track here now, if you'll slow down right to almost nothing, that is a loading station.
You ready?
It's a what?
It's a tank loading station for bitumen.
Oh, wow.
I'll roll when you're
Oh, we're
ready.
good. Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
I'm not sure what their volume is right now because things have been turning down. They've got to keep producing this oil. They can't shut it off because they've got these fires going underneath the ground, some of them, and other places it's steam. And you can't just say, okay, well, the price of oil has gone down, we're going to shut it off. They've got to sell it at a loss just because the shutdown and then startup costs for the field is just astronomical.
Oh, interesting. So, like, if they stop, then it messes up the process?
Oh yeah, because everything solidifies. All the heat is gone underneath the ground, so everything will just tar right up, and it's taken them a long time to get this bitumen under the ground to a level where they can pump it out. Now, if you look here, this is a tank farm. This is the one that feeds that filling station. This is a gas facility here. They have a gas plant to take all of the gas out of the oil that comes through. He's filling up with natural gas there. He'll haul that north somewhere to one of the major filling terminals.
Yeah.
So that it can be used to dilute bitumen. Now, some of the biggest pipelines in Canada come through here.
Is this just one of many of these little stations around here, or is that the main
This
one?
is one of the major ones for this area because of all of the different plants that or fields that these places look after. Ceno's got, I'm not sure how many fields here that that is feeding this. You don't see many of the trucks here hauling salt water. Those are salt water tanks there, I believe. And Tiger Calcium, a company that deals with salt water. That's their business. It's used quite extensively in the industry as a weight material because it's so heavy.
Sure. Makes sense.
Like underground?
Yeah, to keep the gas pressure and the oil pressure down when you're working on a well. So this is Canadian Crude Separators. One of the few industries that is actually working on cleaning soil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they're successful with that?
Oh yeah, well they can, they have a huge centrifuge there where they can spin this dirt and take out all the oil out of it.
Oh,
It's quite an expensive process,
right.
but it does work.
Interesting. So there are options. Just if
Well,
someone's willing to pay for
they
it.
need a few plants like this at Lac-Mégantic right now,
Oh, yeah.
you know, because they've got mountains of dirt and nobody's cleaning them. This is part of their facility here. They put dirt on there and then oil leaches out of the bottom and they draw it off.
Do the trains fly through here a lot?
We're getting 5 or 6 a day now, where before we only used to have 2 trains of about 30 car lengths. The longest one that has been reported to me was 187 cars.
Wow.
And that's mixed. You got diesel fuel and gasoline and anhydrous ammonia and hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid and, you know, like we got hydrogen peroxide. That's a real scary one. Liquid sulfur. Numbers of liquid sulfur cars, all which increase the width of the blast zone. If a liquid sulfur car comes off the track, you have to evacuate a half a mile.
Really?
If it leaks, then you have to evacuate a mile. Change from being an intellectual oil field worker to being person putting together programs and blah blah blah, this kind of stuff. It just don't work well.
Right.
Too much of a socialist even.
pocketbook, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been branded a long time ago as shit disturber / activist, blah 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 blah.
What do you think about this this, what is it, C-53 bill?
Bill C-51.
C-51, yeah.
Well, they probably got me tagged.
Oh yeah, probably. What do you think they'll be able to do anything with that, or that they'll use it against you
If
guys?
we don't vote him out, they definitely will.
Yeah.
But seeing as how he's going to get his ass kicked,
Yeah.
it'll be repealed. But what is scary about it is that we have governments that are planning that kind of stuff.
Sure.
This is the pipeline corridor.
Oh, okay.
There is thousands of liters of oil running underneath our street right now, and cubic meters of gas, natural gas. There's a pipeline over there, pipeline right there, a pipeline right there, a pipeline right there, a pipeline over there. They're just like spaghetti here. Then there's another place where they go that way too.
Wow.
But it's such a good job on that propane facility. You should see some of their messes.
Yeah, that's something that there's so much attention on Bakken oil and coal and bitumen, dilbit, and to some extent crude oil where I'm from, but there's not very much talk about natural gas, propane, or those impacts, and I think it's generally thought of as more benign. Did you have any thoughts about that?
Do you have much use for natural gas over there? Many people use propane?
Some.
Have you ever seen a Blevy?
No.
Oh, jeez. A Blevy is a boiling liquid evaporating vapor explosion, it's called. It happens when a natural gas tank catches on fire. It has a safety relief valve on it. So as this propane inside starts to boil, the pressure valve releases. And you get this great big, a huge fireball as the pressure valve releases. As soon as it releases down to a certain pressure, it shuts off. And it keeps boiling and boiling and boiling, and then it'll release a few times until it'll get to a stage where there's only a little bit of propane in the bottom of the tank, so there isn't enough to keep the steel cooled down, and a fracture of the tiniest thing will happen, and that whole tank will blow. And it blow that tank way past that crosswalk, or that four-way sign. Blow a tank 3/4 of a mile, like a railroad. So they're going to be hauling that natural gas to you and yours somewhere because you have a need for it.
Sure.
They're going to be sending a lot through West Coast. You know, you slowed that one down in Portland, but you know, it's like a little Dutch boy with the bike. Pretty soon he got all of his toes, and like there's another leak, and no, I can't take my pants off. Like I can't plug all the leaks.
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that the work is done right? Well, they did the work right. So they say, next set. Well, how many lines? 95 lines they can't run right now?
Right.
But that's typical of industry's attitude towards the government of Alberta, the government of Canada, the people of the country. We had a spill of tailings pond for a mine by him. Now, there was a huge release, 6.5 million liters of sludge, radioactive stuff, carcinogenic stuff, just like really, really bad shit. And it's flowing down the river. Nobody's saying anything. There's communities taking their water out of that river, and nobody's saying anything. Finally, somebody from their head office in Toronto got a guilty conscience and called the keepers of the Athabasca, who called the Edmonton Journal, who called the provincial government, who said, hey, is there a leak out at Obed? Oh yeah, well, it's not really that bad. It just destroyed 2 creeks, but you know, it's not that bad. And then due diligence, the government did sampling a kilometer downstream for, I think, a month. Ooh, you know, like... But at least the word went out so that most people were able to avoid drinking water out of there. But that's typical of how industry looks at Alberta. Because we're owned lock, stock, and barrel. You know, like, you don't respect your servants. And that's how big business sees our government. They're just bought and paid for. We paid for their campaigns, we own them. Wonder who this guy is now. So let's go somewhere and have another look. Always realizing that, you know, like someday I'm going to have to clean this. But there's going to be an industry to clean it, I'm sure, you know, like... And you see the beginnings of industry reclamation groups and stuff like that, but with this downturn in the oil industry, there's going to be so many orphaned leases. And nobody really wants to do anything about them or have any constructive solutions. I got one, but it's pretty hard to see. There's another pipeline corridor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wow. You said you had an idea for a solution with it?
Yeah. Take all of these leases and clean them up. Take all of the contaminated dirt out. Wash it all out. Put it back. Get some is yet to be developed solar panels. Have to be about that thick. That would allow for plants to grow inside, like greenhouses. Have greenhouse walls about that thick, because we get like 40 below temperatures here, so we have to have some pretty warm or well insulated stuff. And start growing food. Sell solar energy to the grid, and the person that lives on the lease owns it, and after the cleanup is paid for, then they can start paying taxes on the money. Because we can't rely on the United States anymore for food. It may get to a point where the United States will begin to rely on us for food. Because it's all about water.